about these deities. Prabhupada was in New York. Prabhupada was in Washington, in Potomac. And when Prabhupada saw the deities, Prabhupada immediately wanted to come and see them. And when Prabhupada was here, when Prabhupada saw the deities, the tears just came streaming down his eyes. Beautiful. Gaurnitai. Hare Krishna, very happy to be here and very happy to be with all of you. I can see that some of you have come from outside also. Archana, when did you come? A few minutes ago.
We drove from the house.
You drove from New York all the way. Very good. Who drove? How are you? Hare Krishna. Also, there are two other devotees, one of my godbrothers and his son are also traveling with me in another car. Chaitanya, any idea where they are?
No, I didn't find out.
Okay. They have the address. It's easy. I mean, we came straight actually. Didn't have any problem. GPS guided us. When did you come, Amitabh, Krishna?
About half an hour ago.
Oh. Where did you drive from? And you drove, where did you keep your japumala? Yeah. Hare Krishna. So Nilamada Prabhu, when did you take over this responsibility?
2 years now.
2 years now. Very good.
It took 3 years.
Oh, it's 3 years running. Pradyumna Prabhu had been in touch with us. Yeah. And I'm very happy to meet all of you.
Can everyone switch off the phone?
You can keep the phone
On mute.
on a condition. You know what the condition is? That when the phone rings, that gives you the opportunity to sponsor the next Sunday feast. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, how is everybody doing? How is your spiritual life going? How many of you are initiated devotees here? Very good. Very good. And how many of you are chanting 16 rounds? Besides those who are initiated, they are naturally chanting. How many of you are chanting 16 rounds? Very good. Very good. Yeah. And how many of you have accepted Krishna consciousness wholeheartedly? Don't feel shy. Yes. Yes. Okay, then my question will be, why did you accept Krishna consciousness? There are so many things to do in this world. Why Krishna consciousness? Huh? Because Krishna consciousness is the most important thing that one can get involved in. Krishna consciousness means, it's simple to understand, Krishna consciousness or consciousness of Krishna. Consciousness. We are alive because we are conscious. Wherever there is life, there is consciousness. Can there be life without consciousness? When the body is conscious, the body is alive. When the consciousness goes away from the body, then we call it dead body. And where does this consciousness come from? Where does this consciousness come from? Yes, very good. Consciousness comes from the soul. And where does the soul come from? Very good. And where does the super soul reside? Yeah. The consciousness comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead resides in the spiritual world. When we are with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we are in the spiritual world. When we are away from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we are in the material world. Material world is the world of matter. We are spirit souls and we have fallen in the world of matter. And as a result of that, we lost our original identity. In this respect, Prabhupada gave the example of a fish out of the water. A fish out of water. Have you seen a fish out of water? It's very, very miserable. Because fish belongs to water. Fish doesn't belong to the land. When we take the fish out of the water, the fish is miserable. Now, on the land, no matter whatever you give the fish, will the fish be happy? Will the fish be satisfied? The fish will be struggling for... The fish will be very, very miserable. Fish will be in a very difficult situation. But when you take the fish back into water, then what happens? Then immediately the fish becomes happy. Now let us consider our situation. Where do we belong to? We belong to the spiritual world. And we are away from the spiritual world. We are in the world of matter. And we are identifying ourselves with matter. And as a result of that, we are miserable. Now the desire or the endeavor to be joyful, to be happy through matter is called illusion. Like people think in this material nature, what do people think? That by gratifying their senses, they are going to be happy. In this world of matter, they think that if they can get a big house, big car, a lot of money, they'll be happy. But can they be happy just getting those things? No. It's like the example that we considered, a fish out of the water on the land. No matter whatever you give, whatever you offer to the fish, will the fish be happy? Fish cannot be happy. But if the fish thinks, oh, if I get a big car, I'll be happy. If I get a big house, I'll be happy. If I get a lot of money, I'll be happy. But will the fish be happy? For the time being, he may be happy because he got what he wanted. Just like a child, when a child gets a toy, the child feels happy. But for how long? Soon the child gets bored with the toy. Then he wants another toy. So similarly, in this material nature, through material possession, in this material nature, through our sense gratification, we can never be happy. The real happiness lies in our going back to the spiritual world, because we belong there. Everything that we want will automatically be achieved just by being in the spiritual world. So that is the essential understanding of Krishna consciousness. We are spiritual beings and we belong to the spiritual world, we belong to the spiritual sky, and when we go back to the spiritual sky, then we'll be perfectly satisfied. We'll become truly happy. Now again, happiness is not the right expression actually. What we really want is not happiness. What we really want is ananda. What is the difference between happiness and ananda? When our suffering condition is reduced, we call it happiness. We are suffering. When the suffering is reduced, that is happiness. But ananda is the opposite to suffering. If suffering is darkness, then ananda is light, diametrically opposed. There's a world of darkness, there's a world of light. There's a world of suffering, there's a world of joy. And happiness is a temporary cessation of the suffering. We are in darkness, and if there is a little light and darkness is removed for the time being, we call it happiness. We are suffering. When the suffering is reduced to some extent, we call it happiness. But we are in the world of suffering. That removal of suffering is only temporary situation. It comes back again. But ananda is just being in the world of light. I'm in a dark room, and at night in the dark room I light a little candle and get some light. But when the candle is exhausted, then again it's darkness. But then in the morning the sun comes up, then what happens to darkness? The darkness is removed. So similarly, we can become situated in a world of joy, which is completely opposed to suffering condition. Now the question is, how do we get into that world? In this respect also we can consider another analogy, another example. A spark is fire. Tiny fire, little fire. So when the spark is in the fire, then it is fire. But when the spark comes out of the fire, what happens? It loses its fiery quality. And coming out of the fire, that speck of that inflammable object that was the spark, it falls on a heap of ash. It falls on a heap of ash and it becomes ash. It was fire at one time, but now it has become ash. Similarly, a living entity is a tiny little spiritual spark. We all are tiny little spiritual spark. So when we come out of that spiritual reality, when we come out of the spiritual world, then we lose our spiritual qualities. And falling on the world of matter, we become matter. Just as the spark falling on ash becomes ash, we, coming out of the spiritual world and falling into a heap of ash, we become matter. That's why we identify ourselves with matter. This body is me. This body made of matter, we identify with the body, thinking that this is me. Why do we identify ourselves with this material body? Because we have lost our connection with the spiritual reality. And we are identifying ourselves. But originally we were spiritual, but now we are identifying ourselves with this body made of matter. And as a result of that, what is happening? As a result of that, what is happening? As a result of that, we are actually trying to we are trying to fulfill our spiritual desires through this material body. Our desires, all our desires are actually spiritual. But we are trying to achieve fulfill those spiritual desires through this body made of matter. And do we ever become satisfied? Are we ever able to fulfill those desires? Now let us consider, what are the spiritual desires? This quality of a spirit soul is Sat Chit Ananda. The quality of the spirit soul is eternal. Spirit soul is eternal. Spirit soul is immortal. Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharaj ki. So the spirit soul is immortal, eternal. But what we are trying to do, we are trying to make this material body eternal. The spirit soul is full of knowledge, spirit soul is fully conscious. But what we are trying to do, we are trying to make this body conscious. And we are trying to experience joy out of this body through sense gratification. So we are actually, spirit soul is Sat Chit Ananda, eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss, but the spirit soul is trying to achieve these qualities through this material body. He tries to make this body immortal. He tries to make this body full of knowledge. He tries to make this body full of joy. That never happens. All his endeavors are to achieve these three things. But he never gets it because it's not possible. Can ash become fire? The speck of inflammable object that has become ash, lying in ash, can it ever become fire? Can it ever regain its fiery qualities? No. Now, if that speck of inflammable object, that was a spark at one time, if it wants to regain its fiery qualities, what we'll have to do?
Fire.
Go back to the fire. Go back to the fire. So similarly, if we want to regain your spiritual qualities, if we want to regain our spiritual qualities, what we have to do? Go back to the spiritual world. Now how do we go back to the spiritual world? By developing our loving relationship with Krishna. Krishna is the supreme spiritual personality. We are his parts and parcels. We are his parts and parcels. Therefore, if we establish our connection with him, then immediately we'll regain our spiritual qualities. As simple as that. Now, what involves re-establishing our relationship with Krishna? Again, we go back to another consideration. How do we develop relationship? Relationships are based on
Give and take.
yes, but what is the basis of that give and take? Love. Relationships are based on love. Can there be any relationship without love? Can you develop relationship out of hatred? No. So, if we want to develop our relationship with Krishna, what we have to do? We have to develop our love for Krishna. And there is plenty of love in everybody's heart. Wherever there is a living entity, there is love in him. We see even ferocious animals like lions and tigers, they also have love. May not be as prominent, as distinct, but a lion loves its cubs. A tiger loves its cubs. A snake loves its babies. So in this way, out of this loving relation, out of this love, developing our love, we develop our relationships. Hare Krishna. So you made it, Udayananda Prabhu. Can somebody please give him a chair? Udayananda Prabhu is a very senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada. They're giving you a chair.
Not that old yet. No, Guruji, I don't need a chair. I'm fine. I'll take one of these though.
Why did it take so long?
Because the thing wasn't working, my GPS.
Oh, okay.
And then we had to get some
I was wondering what happened. Let me introduce this Udayananda Prabhu. Udayananda Prabhu is a very senior devotee who joined ISKCON in 1972 at the age of 19. And Udayananda Prabhu had been very, very involved in ISKCON activities, serving Srila Prabhupada. He was one of the very, very prominent book distributors in early days. And he is a very dear god brother and an intimate friend of mine. Hare Krishna. So when I came here, Udayananda Prabhu joined me. He wanted to make sure that I am not drifting away.
Drifting to Krishna.
And that is Udayananda Prabhu's son, Krishna Arjun Das. Also a few other boys are traveling with me. Chaitanya just brought me here. Chaitanya. How many of you know Chaitanya? Probably you know him. He is from Philadelphia. Chaitanya Chandra. And Suman is from London. He is also a doctor. And Amitabh Krishna is also from Philadelphia. And he came along with Shashank. Shashank is from India, who is studying in Philadelphia. He is doing his computer science. This is Archana Devidasi. Archana came from she came from India just 2 days back. And Rohini Priya, she is from New York, and she brought them. And there is Aparajita Radhika. Aparajita Radhika also is a doctor, not only a doctor, she is a brain surgeon. She is one of the very few lady brain surgeons. When she was studying, when she opted for brain surgery, there was a big opposition from the faculty. They didn't want a woman brain surgeon. But she stood through all those difficulties. That was in India. In America they don't really have this discrimination. Yeah. How many more years you have? 2 more years. She did her medical in India, but when they come to America, you know probably, like in America they don't recognize Indian qualification, so they have to practically do it again here. And she did that. It's taking her 6 years to do 6 years to go to get the recognition from the American university. So, anyway, we are discussing about Krishna consciousness. And so, is it very difficult subject to understand? I mean, Krishna consciousness. Is there anyone who is newcomer to this temple, to this Krishna consciousness movement? How many of you been in the movement for more than 1 year? Okay, so all of you practically more than a year. Anyway, so you know everything. Does anybody have any question?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is this the same temple that when Srila Prabhupada came?
Yeah.
Same building?
Same building. It's a small temple. You just missed the darshan of the deity.
Unfortunately.
Anyway, you'll be fortunate soon.
Does everyone know the story of Srila Prabhupada?
I just told them.
Oh, you did? Oh.
The picture is there outside. Frame is there outside.
Oh. My friend from New York, Pragosh Das, we grew up together. He was with Srila Prabhupada when he came here. And Prabhupada said, he actually said that Prabhupada, it was in Mangalarti, and the temple president from Baltimore gave Prabhupada a picture. And Prabhupada looked at the picture. He said, where are these deities? He said, Baltimore. He said, that is not very far. He said, yes, Srila Prabhupada, it's less than 1 hour. He was in D.C. at the time. And he said, then we are going to Baltimore. And like that, he said, get my car. And all of a sudden it spread like wildfire that Prabhupada was going to go to Baltimore. And there was like 100 devotees there in D.C. So they all started scrambling and running like pandemonium. And he said he doesn't even know whose car he got in. He just jumped in the car and, Pragosh. And Prabhupada took off, and all these cars started chasing Prabhupada. And Prabhupada actually was on the freeway, and he told his driver, slow down. And all the devotees passed him, so that when they got here, they were all ready for it. Did Maharaj already say all this? No. Okay. But then they had this kirtan. It was like over 100 devotees in this room. Wow. And he said, the kirtan, he says, have you ever heard a bomb go off? That's what that kirtan was like. It was just like an explosion, like the roof was going off. So after the kirtan, Prabhupada, that was actually Guru Puja, and Prabhupada said, and I wrote it down actually, the quote, he said, so there is many wonderful devotees here in your Baltimore temple. And then he says, you are all the most fortunate persons in the world. That's what Prabhupada said. You are all the most fortunate persons in the world. And he looked around and he said, yes, it is a fact. Because you will all have the opportunity to come here each and every day and chant Jai Sachinandana. Jai Sachinandana. And in this way, you all can very easily go back home, back to God. Haribol! And that's actually what just happened, except multiplied 100 times. So let me say that again. You can, and in this way, you all can very easily go back home, back to Godhead. And Prabhupada said it in such a way, like everyone felt in that room, we're all going back to Godhead. They should feel like that. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you. So, does anybody have any question? Yeah.
Krishna consciousness is, we feel is a very easy process compared to other processes. But in material world, when we go and try to preach people, they feel is very difficult, Can you elaborate why?
You see, easy and difficult is a relative consideration. When you know something or when you can do something, then it's easy. Do you know how to ride a bicycle? You know. Is it easy? Do you know how to swim? It's easy. Do you know how to climb a mountain?
No. This is a big mountain, right?
Now, just ask a person who doesn't know how to ride a bicycle. Is it easy or difficult? And then to learn something, we have to follow a process. Can one just jump onto a bicycle and start riding it? No, he has to learn how to balance it. Similarly, the process of Krishna consciousness, there is a process. And the process is Adu Shraddha, Tato Sadhu Sangha, Atha Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nibritti. Like you associate with the devotees, you get initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, you become free from your anarthas. In this way you gradually make your progress. Now a person who did not practice this process, naturally is going to be difficult for him. Another thing is to get the taste. Like you tell somebody, don't eat meat. If you tell a meat eater that you don't eat meat, you tell an alcoholic, don't take alcohol. You tell, in this way, people, those who have developed these bad habits, you ask them to give up those bad habits, it will be difficult for them. But the thing is, when they graduate, when they properly follow the process, then they will say how good it is not to eat meat. Like in today's world, especially Nilamada Prabhu, you as a doctor will admit that meat eating is bad for health. Meat eating causes so many diseases. And besides that, the human intestine, human digestive system is not actually meant for digesting meat. Tiger's stomach is okay for meat, but not a human stomach. So human stomach is not meant for digesting meat, and you put meat there, naturally they'll develop all kinds of diseases. And the meat will not give the nourishment to the body, but will create poison in the body. And that's what is happening. Similarly, alcohol, it destroys your brain cells. It creates so much, it pollutes your consciousness. So in this way, when one learns to follow these processes, no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling, then he begins to lead a healthy life. But in order to come to that point of understanding, they have to practice the process properly. And then what to speak of developing his loving relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gaur Sundar Ki. Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani. So this is how, although in the beginning they'll find it difficult, but if they take the trouble to practice the process properly, yes, they will get the taste of it. Yes, you have a question?
There's a point you mentioned, the difference between happiness and ananda, which has struck my heart. Can you just a little bit more points on that?
Elaborate it? Okay. Yeah, as I was explaining, like, this is the world of suffering. And in this world of suffering, one desires to become free from that suffering condition. And when those desires are fulfilled, then he thinks that he has become happy. He is in a suffering condition, but for the time being, he thinks that his suffering condition has been removed. And that's what he considers to be happiness. Like, for example, a very common consideration of happiness today is people think that if they have money, then with money they'll be able to get whatever they want. And when he gets some money, he feels he's happy. He becomes very happy. But actually, very soon he realizes that money cannot buy him happiness. Meaning, money cannot remove his distressful condition completely. He thinks that by getting money he will be able to overcome his suffering condition. But it doesn't work. Temporarily he feels, oh, I got what I wanted. So happiness actually, in the prime consideration or preliminary consideration of happiness is fulfillment of desire. When your desires are fulfilled, then you think that you are happy. But very soon you realize that it does not really give you what you actually wanted. For example, a man thinks that, well, if I get a nice big car, I'll be happy. He gets a big car, he's happy for the time being. But very soon he realizes that to maintain the car he needs so many different things. So this car, instead of becoming a source of joy, it becomes a source of distress. And what to speak of someday the car gets stolen? Or what to speak of he ends up with an accident? What to speak of in that accident his wife dies? So the car which he thought is going to be the source of his happiness very soon became the source of distress. And that is material nature. Like, we desire something and we think that by fulfilling that desire we are going to be happy, but it doesn't work. And that is called illusion. Illusion, the word illusion actually means to think of something which is not. We consider that something to be something which actually it is not. Like illusion, one of the example of an illusion is a mirage. Mirage gives you the impression of water. But is it water? It's the opposite to water. It's hot sand. This hot sand creates the illusion of water. Now, will this mirage quench anybody's thirst? No, because it's not water. Rather, it allures him towards it, and he runs after it. But the more he runs after it, the more it disappears. More it runs away from him. So that is a mirage, is an illusion. Similarly, in this material nature, we are actually thirsty of joy. We are hankering for joy. And we think that we will enjoy, we will find joy in something. But when you get it, we see that that's not what we wanted. So that is happiness, right? Temporary or momentary cessation of suffering condition. But joy is diametrically opposite to what suffering is. Like in this material nature, we are thinking that by getting something, we will enjoy. Whereas in the spiritual world, that is readily available. We don't have to strive for that. It is there, without even asking for that. Like our hearts become filled with joy just by being there. Like we don't have to separately endeavor to enjoy. The joy is already there. So the difference is running after a mirage and being in a pool of water. Like when you are in a pool of water, do you have to separately endeavor to quench your thirst? The water is abundantly available. So, what we actually want is already there in the spiritual world. And just by being there, all our needs, all our demands will automatically be fulfilled. So that is the difference between material world and spiritual world. Okay.
So Maharaj, when you're chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, sometimes enjoying, sometimes so difficulty for chanting. Can you focus on it?
Yeah. Anyway, you sit down and then I'll answer your question.
Yeah, you go ahead. Go ahead. I'm just saying, okay, go ahead.
No. You should sit down.
I'm sorry.
Hand it to someone else. You don't even need to do that.
Yeah.
Maharaj, I was just thinking that, what you describe about the material and happiness
Okay.
is stress, and how we are happy when we get it. And isn't it the same thing applies when people are thinking of having a big nice transfer, and with the temple comes the big heavy bills and big maintenance and so many devotees need to be taking care of the property and all those things. That is also becoming a source of anxiety sometimes. So how if this anxiety is different than this anxiety?
Yeah. Same point, like you see, there is a thing called sentiment. It's a mental condition. Whereas joy is a spiritual condition. It has nothing to do with mind. That's why joy, the actual joy, when it's experienced, it is uninterrupted. Like so for example, say initially somebody experiences some, sentiment coming to the temple and being in that situation. You get a glimpse of that spiritual thing, but that doesn't last for very long. That's why Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Madhurya Kadambini, he described that situation as utsahamai. Utsaha means enthusiastic. And he compared it to a child getting a new book. He can't read, but he got a book. And he pretends as if he is reading it so nicely. He's holding the book upside down. He even goes to bed with the book. But very soon he loses this attraction for that. Then he doesn't even look at it. That stage is called ghanotarala. Sometimes interested, sometimes not. You see, joy, we have to understand, is not a matter of material world. Joy is not a thing of this material world. Ananda is a spiritual thing. The heart will experience that when it establishes its connection to Krishna. Until then, sometimes materially he'll feel excitement and sometimes he'll feel depressed. Sometimes there's a big kirtan and everyone is dancing, he also dances, he feels happy, he feels joy, but that is not ecstasy. The real ecstasy or joy will be experienced when he is situated in that spiritual platform. Until then it's just some sentimental experience. Same thing, same answer to your question also. Right? But doesn't matter. We've got this thing. We found the real stuff. Now we have to practice it. We got the medicine. If we take the medicine, the disease will be cured. And when the disease is cured, then we'll get the taste of the real food. Prabhupada gives the example in that respect about sugar and jaundice. You do one thing, you don't have to take it to everyone. Just let everybody take it from there. You just have
Kind of offer to Prabhupada.
So you found the process, practice it, and it will happen. Right? You got the medicine, you take the medicine, the disease will be cured. And when the disease will be cured, then, you will get the real taste. You see why, in this respect we can consider one thing, like we find so many devotees who at one time were so enthusiastically involved. They're not even here today. Why is that? If they really got the taste, could they ever give it up? No. So that is the unfortunate thing. They were sentimentally involved for some time. They enthusiastically got involved and practiced. But because they didn't practice the process properly for long enough, they didn't get the taste. So that taste is the platform of ruchi. Taste. The Sanskrit word for ruchi means taste. Nishtha, you become steady in your devotional service, then you get the taste. And after the taste, one will get the bhav. One will experience the transcendental emotions. And that will eventually lead to prem, love. Therefore, we should be prepared to go through the process. We should not think that we'll just get it overnight. We should be prepared. Let it be life after life. Let me just stay on in this path. Staying on is the most important thing. When it will come, I don't care. But now I know that I found it, so let me stick to it. If you know that the train is going to take you to Los Angeles from Baltimore, then what do? All you have to do is just stay on the train until the train reaches Los Angeles. Don't just get into the train and get out next stop, and then you'll never be able to reach your destination. So fine, yes, you are experiencing, sometimes you're enjoying it, sometimes you're not enjoying it. Doesn't matter. Whether you like it or not, whether you like the medicine or not, doesn't matter. You just keep taking the medicine. Then if you continue to take the medicine, the cure will be there. Yes, Nirvana Prabhu.
I've heard a lot of things about if you chant fixed number of rounds, 16 rounds or 18, whatever you vow for that. But sometimes I notice also when people chant, that quality is not there, they will be either doing something else or talking to other devotees. Is quantity important, or I know both are important, but...
Yeah. The quality is more important than quantity. But because you're in a practicing stage, because we are in a practicing stage, that's why the prescribed number is also important. Because then what will happen, if we do not follow the prescribed number, then gradually it will reduce and reduce and reduce to nothing. So that's why to follow the prescribed number, 16 rounds is so important. If Prabhupada didn't give the 16 rounds, then what would have happened? We would have stopped chanting at some point. But now we know, since Prabhupada says 16 rounds, we have to chant. Whether we like it or not, we have to chant it. Whether we are chanting with attention or with absent mind, keep chanting. We have to chant it. And ultimately we have to consider, all that we are going through is a preparatory stage. We are simply preparing ourselves. The test will come. The final exams will come at the time of death. So how we prepared ourselves will be tested at that time. So with that in mind, we have to seriously prepare ourselves. And we have to be prepared for death at any time. We have to consider it may come at any moment. And we have to say, am I ready? If death comes now, am I ready? Am I ready means, am I ready to leave everything behind and face the new world that I'm going to face now? And especially when we know that new world is going to be wonderful. So why should we look back? Let's just look forward. After all, what's there to gain in this world? Attachments are there, but we have to be free from those attachments by offering those attachments offering those objects of love to Krishna. As householders, one develops a lot of attachments. And we have to be free from those attachments. We have to become free from those entanglements by offering them to Krishna. They are not mine. A householder should feel, my wife is not my wife. She is a Krishna's devotee. My children are not my children, they are Krishna's children. And I'm simply a caretaker. I am simply taking care of them on behalf of Krishna. Otherwise, there will be attachments. And we see that people get so easily entangled. Even at old age, they become attracted. They're not so attached to their children, but they become attached to their grandchildren. Of course, if they can offer their grandchildren, take care of the grandchildren thinking they're Krishna's, then it's fine. But if that attachment develops on the material platform, then, we are running a big risk. At the time of death, we may not remember Krishna, we may think of our grandchildren. And that's why we have to be very, very careful, whenever there is some attachment, we have to consider, am I safe with this attachment? Am I ready to leave it behind without any attachment? Or am I going to become stuck with that? So, and that's why, association of good devotees is so important. Because that's good devotee association reminds us about our ultimate goal. That it is actually for Krishna. Our ultimate goal is Krishna's lotus feet. And nothing can be more attractive than that. And that's why Prabhupada created this wonderful society for Krishna consciousness, society for devotees. And we get together simply to discuss about these points. Thank you. Yes, Udayananda Prabhu.
Maharaj, could you talk a little bit about the 10 offenses, chanting the holy name? Because from my experience, it seems that many, many people come and they're very innocent and accommodating to everyone, and in the course of complacency, they take devotee association for granted, and then eventually, familiarity breeds contempt, and they commit offense, and then it seems like they lose the taste for chanting.
Okay, thank you. What is the first offense, which is the most dangerous of all offenses? To blaspheme the devotees of the Lord. In one hand, the association of devotees can take us back to Godhead. Devotees are the ones who give us informations about Krishna, informations about spiritual world. And as Udayananda Prabhu pointed out, that sometimes the familiarity, due to familiarity, we fail to recognize the importance of the devotees. And we commit offenses due to our false ego. It's all due to false ego, actually. False ego means consider this body to be me, and as a result of that, we think that I'm the greatest. And as a result of that, we fail to recognize the greatness of the devotees. And that's why we commit offense to the devotees. Second offense is to consider the names of the demigods, exalted demigods even, like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma. They are also not equal to Krishna. But to consider that these demigods are equal to Krishna. There comes one point, there are two considerations, Bhagavan and Devatas. In simple words, consider the Devatas to be Bhagavan. Indra, Chandra, Varun, etc. Even Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is Mahadev. Mahadev. But he may be the Mahadev, but he even is not equal to Krishna. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, one without a second. So that's why we should be very clear that Krishna is Krishna, the supreme, and no one is equal to him. Everyone is subordinate to him. Everyone is subservient to him. The third offense, the spiritual master gives us guidance for our spiritual progress. Now if we disregard his instructions, then what is the possibility of our spiritual progress? Similarly, the Vedic literatures are there to guide us in our spiritual life. Now if we blaspheme those Vedic literatures, then what's the possibility of our spiritual advancement? The fifth offense, the holy name is the absolute, supreme object, non-different from Krishna. Now, the holy name has inconceivable qualities. Now to consider that these are just an exaggeration, then what is the possibility of our receiving the mercy of the holy name? And similarly, the sixth offense, to give some mundane interpretation, the holy name is Krishna himself. Now to give some interpretation, Ka means this, Ra means this, Sha means this, therefore Krishna means this. That means we are not really treating the holy name as Krishna himself. The seventh offense, the holy name can remove all our sinful reactions. And now if we think that, we'll keep on committing sinful activities and chant the holy name and be free from the sinful reactions. The eighth offense, the Vedic Karma Kanda is giving us various instructions about fruitive activities, getting material benefit by doing things. Now if we consider the chanting the holy name is going to give us those material benefits, that is an offense. The benefit that we can derive from this holy name is only spiritual. We should not try to derive any material benefit out of chanting the holy name. It is something like when you have a Rolls-Royce car, do you use it for plowing the land? Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Sundar ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani. And ninth offense, the faithless person, the people, those who do not have faith in Krishna and Krishna consciousness, to speak to them about the glory of the holy name will make them even more offensive. Therefore, it's better to avoid. But for the sake of preaching, sometimes we take that risk. To create the benefit for them, we take that risk. And 10th offense, not to have complete faith in chanting the holy name and to maintain material attachments even after hearing. So many instructions on this matter. So the holy name is going to give us Krishna Prem. If we don't have the faith in the potency of the holy name, the effect of the holy name, but we maintain our material attachments, then what's the point in chanting the holy name? And it's also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. So chant attentively and always being very, very concerned about these offenses. Because these offenses are the impediments that will hinder our spiritual progress. Okay, thank you all very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanande.
Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj Gurudev.